Congressman Adam Schiff, a Democrat from California, who's on the Select Committee on Intelligence. Representative, Peter King basically saying yet more questions are arising from Petraeus' testimony. What can you tell us about David Petraeus' testimony this morning?
I think he gave us a very candid assessment of what his initial thoughts were based on the best intelligence when he originally briefed us and how those assessments changed over time. And I think he and others have completely debunked the idea that there was some politicization of the intelligence. There's never been any substance to that charge, and I can only surmise that, this was a campaign-era attack, and some of my colleagues just can't let it go. All the evidence to the contrary, they just can't seem to let it go. But I think, people respected what he had to say today. Many of us value the contributions he's made to the country and are sorry to see him go. But again, there's simply no there there. Yes, they made errors in their initial assessment. That's going to happen. We have binders full of the raw intelligence. We can see why those errors were made. We can also see why they changed and improved their assessment.
Were you satisfied
There's no great mystery.
What David Petraeus said, Representative King said he was?
Was I satisfied? Yes. I think that these are, people who were giving us their best professional insights. And at the time they told us, look, it's early. We're going to learn more. This is what we think right now. And some of the members just didn't pay attention when they were told these are our early assessments. And there is a lot of fog of war that covers an event like this. And if I could go into the particulars of the intelligence, you would have a better sense of just why initially they thought there were protests outside of the facility.
Can you talk around what those particulars were?
Well, we have a combination of intelligence streams, some human intelligence, some technical and tactical, some open source. You have organizations taking credit for things they didn't do. You have other organizations disavowing their involvement that may have been involved. And so you have to parse all that out and sort it out, and that takes time. Some of the very best evidence, and I think some of the best evidence was some of the video evidence, didn't come to us until late. And I think there are good questions about why we didn't get that sooner, or why some of the precipient witnesses, the State Department people, why their views didn't rise to the top because they were in the best position to tell us. But that doesn't suggest in any way that there was some politicization. I think it's time for us to move on and find those responsible and bring them to justice.
John McCain and a few other senators, as you know, have been very vocal, saying this administration was either incompetent or involved in a cover-up, those words. And what you heard today, does that put that question to rest?
It really does. And no one who's ever come in from the intelligence community has ever suggested anything along those lines. I asked the general in particular about Ambassador Rice, and he was very clear. The unclassified talking points that we were given were their best assessment that they could give us without compromising classified information. And her comments tracked that exactly. We were given that late on Saturday. She appeared early on Sunday. There's simply no there there, and I wish my GOP colleagues could move on to focus on what we should be focusing on, which is finding those responsible and bringing them to justice. In a year in which it wouldn't have been a presidential election, that's what we would be doing, and that's what we should be doing now.
About that affair with Paula Broadwell and the possibility of classified information being compromised, what did you learn about that? Was that discussed at all?
It really wasn't discussed at all. I mean, there was a threshold question at the outset of the hearing, just to set the stage, essentially, that nothing to do with the reasons why he resigned had any impact on Benghazi or Benghazi. There was no connection between the two. And once that threshold question was set aside, then we were able to move on to the focus of the hearing, which was purely on Benghazi.
Right. 90 minutes, more or less. What was the mood?
I think the mood was somber. Certainly people understand the difficult time that General Petraeus is going through. Nobody wanted to embarrass him or humiliate him. We wanted to get to the bottom of, why the early assessments weren't accurate. What kind of security did we have? What does this say going forward? And as he always has when he's come to testify before our committee, I think he was very forthcoming, a very straight shooter, and that didn't change today.
All right, Congressman Adam Schiff, thank you so much for your time. To our journalists who are with us.